Welcome to Scarlet Tavern. Grab a drink, take a seat, and let's begin. Greetings, fellow truth hunters and mental escapists. Last time, we merely dipped our toes into the swirling waters of MK Ultra, that enigmatic experiment that makes even the most seasoned conspiracy theorists raise an eyebrow. But fear not, intrepid listeners, for today, we're strapping on our scuba gear and plunging headfirst into the abyssal depths of mind manipulation, government intrigue, and the tangled web of truth and deception. So fasten your seatbelts, folks, because this time we're going deeper than a conspiracy theorist in a rabbit hole. Let's unravel the mysteries of MK Ultra one twisted thread at a time. This is Scarlet Tavern. All right.
Back at it.
Back for part 2. We apologize for the late upload. Scheduling conflicts have happened. So this will be uploaded a little bit later than our normal uploads, but we wanted to get it out there for you. So let's just jump right into it.
MK Ultra, Bardu, Electric Boogaloo.
Project MK Ultra was a covert operation initiated by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency that conducted illegal experiments on human subjects from 1953 to 1973. The program aimed to discover and develop techniques that could be used in interrogations to undermine individuals' will and extract confessions through methods akin to brainwashing and psychological coercion. The methods employed in MK Ultra included the secret administration of high doses of hallucinogenic drugs, such as LSD, along with other chemicals, often without the knowledge or consent of the participants. Additionally, subjects were subjected to electroshock therapy, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, as well as verbal, physical, and sexual abuse. These techniques were intended to alter mental states and brain functions, often resulting in extreme distress. The origins of Project MK Ultra trace back to the unsettling experiments conducted by Nazi scientists during the early 1940s in concentration camps such as Auschwitz and Dachau. These scientists used substances like barbiturates, morphine, derivatives, and hallucinogens, including mescaline, on prisoners of various nationalities to attempt creating a true serum that would suppress the subject's will. Stephen Kinzer, an American historian, posits that MK Ultra was effectively a continuation of these heinous Nazi practices, further highlighted by the recruitment of German scientists to the U.S. through Operation Paperclip.
What's that word?
Heinous.
I thought it was heinous.
Listen, I just woke up, so if y'all want to do this, you can. The American exploration into drug-facilitated interrogation began in 1943 with the Office of Strategic Services' quest to develop a truth drug capable of eliciting unrestrained honesty during interrogations. In 1947, this interest expanded under the United States Navy with Project Chatter, which marked the inaugural human trials of lysergic acid diethylamide, which is LSD-25. By 1950, under the guidance of CIA Director Walter Bedell Smith, the United States initiated several interrogation projects involving unwitting human subjects, starting with Project Bluebird, later named Project Artichoke in 1951.
Which we covered before.
Led by Brigadier General Paul F. Gaynor, Project Artichoke explored whether it was possible to coerce a person into performing involuntary acts, including assassination. Unknowing CIA agents were administered drugs like morphine, mescaline, and LSD to test for induced amnesia. The project also investigated the use of biological agents like dengue fever virus as potential incapacitating tools.
Now we see the man who kind of really made the CIA the way we kind of would know it for, Walter Bedell Smith, also known as Beetle, to those who served with him in World War II.
Or as you wrote it, Bettel.
That's actually how it's
Then
it's
it's not
spelled,
Beetle.
but that's how it was pronounced. That's how all the records I found that interview, they called him Beetle. That's just how they spelled it.
Then they're all idiots.
Well, this is the U.S. Army we're talking
Because that's not how you spell beetle.
about.
I mean, Army does stand for aren't real men yet, so.
Oh.
That's literally Bettel.
Mm.
So I will say Bettel because that's...
I mean, you're not wrong. His
That's
name
how
is Bettel.
those of us who are educated say it. So, Truman appointed Walter Bedell Smith as the Director of Central Intelligence, DCI, in, leading the Central Intelligence Agency on October 7th, 1950. By that time, the position, established in 1946, had seen 3 directors, none of whom had eagerly accepted the role. In response to the Dulles-Jackson Korea Report of 1949, which criticized the CIA for failing in its intelligence coordination and production duties, the U.S. National Security Council endorsed the report's findings and recommendations. These findings were awaiting implementation when Truman selected Smith for the CIA, recognizing his leadership capabilities just months before the unexpected North Korean invasion of South Korea in June 1950, which escalated the Korean War. So we essentially can blame Truman for all of this.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't blame Truman for wanting to have a more efficient intelligence gathering agency. Unfortunately, he just never put in the proper oversight for it.
Is there even oversight?
Now.
Now there is.
Now there is. Then, no.
No.
Now there are so many checks and balances, and
Wonder they get anything done.
everything's caught up by red tape and all of that stuff. So, CIA has done some hanky stuff in the past, like
MK Ultra.
well, not just that, it's selling cocaine, which we'll cover that too.
Conducting illegal military operations in Laos and Cambodia before we ever got in there.
Conducting operations where they're not allowed to, like the United States.
Yeah, that too.
Because for those that don't know, the CIA is not supposed to operate in the United States, anywhere in the United States or its territories.
That's the job of the FBI.
Correct. But throughout history, the CIA has decided that they wanted to put their foot in their mouth and do a few things inside the U.S., like import cocaine and
or recruit people illegally for an illegal military operation out of a taxi stand in the University of Miami, Florida.
Well,
That's
so
the Bay of Pigs.
it's so funny because I'm rewatching the show Chuck, which is, if you guys have not seen it, it is a great show. It's Zachary Levi. It's one of his first big things. Zachary Levi is Shazam, the
I haven't even seen that one yet.
superhero with a big lightning bolt on his
We've
chest.
seen that.
I haven't seen Shazam.
Oh, yes, we have.
I've seen Black Adam. You've probably watched Shazam.
So
Without me.
Black Adam is Shazam's archenemy, but Zachary Levi, he's great. And that was like one of his first big roles. And then there was a lot of famous people that got brought in. Also, Adam Baldwin is in it, who was famous for Firefly, amongst many other things, which actually he is related to the Baldwins, just not directly. He is a distant cousin. I looked it up because it's very weird to have all these Baldwins and one of them is not related with the same exact spelling and everything. That's a little weird, but they trace their lineage back to like the 1600s.
Oh, okay.
So he is related technically. He's just not one of the brothers. But in that, so one of them, so basically what the show is about is, and actually Matt Bomer is in it, who is one of my favorites. He was in White Collar, Magic Mike, tons of other things, but you would know him if you saw him.
Probably.
But trust me, you would not forget his face. Look him up, Bomer, Matt Bomer, or Bomer. But basically, Matt Bomer's character is an old friend of Chuck's, and he is a spy for the CIA, and they have this thing called the Intersect, which is basically the CIA and NSA and FBI sharing all of their information into one central computer, which then they can pull from to identify threats. Well, he takes all this information, sends it to Chuck in an encrypted email. Chuck opens it. All the images hit his brain, flash through. He now has all the information of the Intersect, and then the actual computer's destroyed. And then 2 agents become his handlers. One CIA, one NSA. And we were... I was just... they were asking in the show, why did this guy pick Chuck out of everybody? They went to college together. This guy, his name in it is Bryce. Why did Bryce choose him? Because Bryce got him kicked out of college and all of that. And why did Bryce get him kicked out of college? Bryce said that he was because Chuck was scoring perfect on all his tests, like genius level perfect at Stanford. And they so Bryce ends up saying that he cheated through the whole thing. Well, turns out that they were recruiting from Stanford for the CIA. And Chuck was one of those people that was going to get recruited into military op. And Bryce saved him from being recruited because Bryce was already recruited. And so by getting him kicked out, it gets rid of the results and he doesn't get recruited. And it's known throughout. I said that because we were talking about recruitment, and throughout history, the CIA has recruited from these major colleges. They will take and put professors in place that are basically recruitment officers, and they see a candidate that has potential, and they take it forward their file to the CIA, and the CIA goes yes or no, chooses them, and then they're basically groomed from college to graduate and then go directly into the CIA, whether it's clandestine operations, as an analyst, whatever. But usually your big colleges, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, all of those, they are recruiting straight from colleges. So, lacking familiarity with the CIA, Smith sought a knowledgeable deputy and appointed William Harding Jackson, a co-author of the Duelist Jackson Korea Report, under the condition of respectful treatment. Together, Smith and Jackson initiated a reorganization of the agency, aligning it more closely with the report's suggestions to enhance intelligence gathering and dissemination. On October 10th, Smith was tasked with preparing intelligence estimates for the Wake Island Conference with General Douglas MacArthur, insisting these estimates be straightforward and actionable. Despite these efforts, a significant oversight occurred when the estimates incorrectly predicted that China would not intervene in Korea.
Yeah, they really missed that one.
Oh, they didn't do anything in Korea.
I bet you any money they never realized that Stalin had sent Soviet pilots to go fly for the North Korean Air Force either. That's a fun fact. That actually did happen.
Following these events, Smith established the Office of National Estimates, one, to improve intelligence assessments, which I believe one does not exist anymore.
No, it does not.
It kind of got absorbed into the CIA.
I mean, if it still exists, it exists under something else's, under like another something.
Let's see. No. The closest thing is Office of national statistics. That's about the closest thing. And that's not even American. It's UK. So I believe it got absorbed just straight into the CIA.
Probably.
By December 1st, Smith had organized the CIA into a structured agency with distinct directorates for administration, plans, and intelligence. He is credited with being one of the CIA's most effective directors, integrating covert operations oversight within the agency, which was previously managed independently by Frank Wisner's Office of Policy Coordination, which again does not exist anymore. Once Smith came in, he kind of got rid of that.
Kind of seems like he really streamlined the CIA and got rid of all these almost, I don't want to say useless departments, but he just kind of like really condensed everything down into a smaller, more manageable group.
Oh yeah, Smith also initiated the consolidation of the OPC, which is the Office of Policy Coordination, and the Office of Special Operations into a unified directorate, enhancing operational efficiency and coherence. So yeah, he is the reason the CIA is the way it is today. Without him, the CIA would still be all over the place. They would have 500 different sections of the CIA. Now that we know of, there's 4 to 5. There's probably more that they don't talk about.
I would imagine if they've kept with what Beetle Smith did was they kept these directorates, but what they've done is there's probably little sections within them that are probably we just don't know about. Like a couple cubicles, these guys are doing just this. What are they doing? Who knows? You don't have the clearance.
They have 7.
7. That's
Directorate of Analysis, Directorate of Operations, Directorate of Science and Technology, Directorate of Support, Directorate of Digital Innovation, Mission Centers, and Offices of the Director.
What do you think the science guys are doing?
Making shit that kills people quietly.
Probably.
That's where we're gonna get lightsabers.
I would have thought DARPA would do that.
I think DARPA is more lightsabers.
I don't know. DARPA likes big stuff.
They like cool stuff.
DARPA
It could also be samurai.
DARPA likes to have their hands on a lot of things. I know a few DARPA agents, and they're fucking out there. Walter Bedell Smith played a pivotal role in transforming the CIA into the principal government entity responsible for covert operations by centralizing oversight of these activities. He was instrumental in advocating for the CIA to be recognized as a viable career path. Historically, the Manchu Law had imposed limitations on the duration of temporary assignments for officers, which discouraged long-term careers in general staff roles. Furthermore, the lack of dedicated intelligence training schools and minimal duties during peacetime led many officers to steer clear of intelligence work unless they were aiming for positions like military attaché.
I think this is probably his most lasting effect.
Yeah, so what was happening with the Manchu Law is they were basically, you were only getting like 3 to 6 month assignments at a time, which for a spy, that's nothing. You don't have time to integrate yourself into where you're going. You don't have time to establish your cover well. There's so many things that takes years.
Oh yeah,
it takes years to do, especially as a spy. I may know somebody that has done stuff like that. That may be a family member. But I have family that works in each branch of the letter agencies.
Damn.
Yeah. One of my uncles is an FBI hacker.
Well, don't out him.
Oh, he's open with it. Yeah, one of my uncles is an FBI hacker. Has been for like 30 years. Plus, I'm not saying his name. So, and I have a lot of family. So, good luck finding them. But yeah, so they were only getting 3 to 6 months to do these clandestine operations, and it was doing nothing for them. So they weren't able to get the intel that they needed, and it was just kind of pointless. So, and you weren't having a career, so a lot of guys were joining the CIA thinking, "Oh, we're gonna be here for a long time. I'm gonna have all this stuff," and then nothing was happening. So they're leaving and going to the FBI or the NSA.
I mean, also, it just, in terms of long-term intelligence gathering for the country as a whole, you're not attracting the right people. You're just attracting people who are probably reading those, what do they call them, like Penny Dreadful novels about secret agents and stuff going around and doing stuff, because that's really all that time allows them for. That's how I'm looking at it. It's like, okay, so the only way I would be effective at this is if I'm like breaking into somebody's place, stealing a few documents, and getting out of there. I mean, that can certainly work, but eventually everyone's going to figure out what you're doing, and they're just going to take steps to stop you. And
Yeah.
So I mean, this is probably, like I said, Bedell's lasting effect on the CIA, and just really, and probably the American intelligence communities as a whole.
To address these challenges and attract dedicated professionals, Smith restructured the training regimen within the CIA. He established a director of training and developed a comprehensive career service program, laying the groundwork for the agency to cultivate a core of skilled intelligence officers. This restructuring was crucial in professionalizing intelligence work within the CIA, ensuring that it could effectively meet its growth responsibilities in the Cold War era. Now, this is exactly what I was talking about. So it is Smith who created finding potential agents through colleges and various other stuff where you hear like somebody was a hacker that got caught and then now works for the government. That is what is happening here.
Mm-hmm.
It's either you go to jail or you work for us kind of thing. Or you just are so exemplary in certain set of skills in college and are doing so well that they basically, what was happening is the CIA then funded your college. They were paying for the rest of your college quietly.
Mm-hmm.
And the school basically says, "Oh, we have a scholarship for you," and you're getting. But then what's happening is. You, with this, you are basically signing a contract to now work for the CIA for X amount of years. Now, during Eisenhower's term as Supreme Allied Commander Europe in 1951, he requested Smith as his Chief of Staff, a position Truman denied, emphasizing the importance of Smith's role as DCI. Later, when Eisenhower recommended promoting his replacement, Truman insisted that Smith be promoted first, which happened on August 1st, 1951. Smith retired from the Army and concluded his CIA directorship on February 9th, 1953, leaving a lasting impact on the agency's structure and mission.
Now, in my opinion, this is kind of where, after Smith left the CIA, I always kind of felt like he set up the structure and for the CIA to grow, but I always felt that he was probably one of the people that followed him were not, I don't feel, as honorable. Understand something about Smith's background. He was a soldier first and foremost. That's what he was. He started off as a private in the Indiana National Guard, and then eventually he rose to be Eisenhower's chief of staff, a 2-star general in World War II. Had a big hand in planning most of the operations that we fought in World War II, including Overlord, the D-Day landings. Because a lot of the people who followed after him, specifically Director Dulles, kind of got into the really dark, murky, because if we looking at the timeline of some stuff of the worst parts of MK Ultra and other projects started under Dulles. So now we're going to get into probably what is the most recognizable aspect of MK Ultra, LSD.
Oh, so we have done some LSD during this, so we can really get the full experience.
Oh, that's why I keep seeing shit on the walls and ceilings.
Yes, U.S. Army. Ben has done LSD.
No, I have not. I have not done any drugs.
Ben's gonna go to his next drill and be drug tested. Actually, you probably are gonna be drug tested.
You're 100% gonna be
because you're
drug
going
tested.
you're on a new duty station.
Yeah, so
you're gonna be drug tested anyways. So you're gonna fail.
Anybody from the DoD listening, I have not done any drugs in my life, to include marijuana, especially LSD. So
that he's aware of.
Nobody better be slipping shit into me. I've been reading up on this, doing the research. I know what people are doing.
Do you know what LSD tastes like or smells like?
I didn't go that deep. I should have actually.
So you're about to find out.
You might want to cover your butt too with your
true.
job.
Yeah,
that is true. Can I not lose my security clearance, please? Yes. None of us have done drugs. We would like to keep our clearances. We would like to keep all of our stuff because, we would like to make money. So, Albert Hoffman, a Swiss chemist, began his notable career at Sandal's Laboratories in Basel, where he worked under Professor Arthur Stoll, the founder and director of the pharmaceutical department. His research initially focused on the medicinal plants such as squill and the ergo fungus, aiming to isolate and synthesize their active components for pharmaceutical use. Do you guys know what those are?
I know what ergot is. That is a fungus that's found in yeast.
Fucking idea.
It's it can cause hallucinations and other kind of serious psychotic episodes. It's believed that some of the initial accusers of the Salem witch trials, were actually victims of this because the bread that the baker used or the yeast he used was moldy and it had this ergot in it.
Yeah, so squill is used for a lot of lung diseases, bronchitis, asthma, whooping cough, all of that. So that is what squill is used for. Very, very... It's also used to relieve edema, fluid retention, thin mucus. It induces vomiting in certain doses, and it can cause an abortion. So it's basically a medical abortion. And then it's also used in pest control as rat poison. So think about that when you guys are taking something that has squill. So there are a lot of uses for these. So
look at Wolfram.
Yep.
It's blood thinner, but in high doses, it is also rat poison.
Yeah. Just remember that, Ben. When it's in your coffee. Hoffman's significant achievement was determining the chemical structure of the core components found in the glycosides of the Mediterranean squill. In his exploration of lysergic acid derivatives, Hoffman first synthesized lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD, on November 16, 1938, with the primary goal of creating a stimulant for respiratory and circulatory systems. However, after initial tests, LSD was shelved for several years. On April 16, 1943, Hoffman revisited the substance, and during the synthesis, he inadvertently absorbed a small quantity of LSD, leading to the first human experience with its profound psychological effects.
I honestly did not know what LSD stood for. I thought that was like the actual name.
Lysergic acid diethylamide. But nobody wants to say that, so they say LSD.
Or acid. Dropping acid.
Yep. Ben, you sound like you're really familiar with that.
I just watch a lot of movies from the 60s.
That and this piqued his interest, so he's been watching a lot of MK Ultra documentaries and shit.
Hoffman recounted his experience, noting an overwhelming sense of restlessness and slight dizziness, which prompted him to return home and rest. There, he entered a state he described as not unpleasantly intoxicated, marked by an extraordinarily vivid imagination. With closed eyes, Hoffman experienced a continuous flow of fantastic images and shapes, all unfolding in insanely vibrant, kaleidoscopic colors. This surreal and colorful voyage lasts about 2 hours before gradually subsiding. This reminds me, if anybody has watched Legends of Vox Machina, when they are tripping out in the Feywilds, and it's just all the colors are flashing and Trinket talks to them.
What about the episode of our own campaign for Campaign 1 when a certain person's character inadvertently got a certain character's blood in their mouth?
Yeah, I remember that.
New episodes of Dungeons and Magi every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern.
On Twitch.
On Twitch.
Yes. And then the following Wednesday on YouTube. And Spotify. So, little plug there. The effects of LSD typically commence within 30 minutes of ingestion and can persist up to 20 hours, although most experiences last between 8 and 12 hours. LSD is known for its potential to induce mystical experiences and a phenomenon known as ego dissolution, where individuals may lose their sense of self. It is primarily used as a recreational drug or for spiritual purposes.
I cannot imagine.
Can we create a religion where LSD is the primary thing? So
No.
that everybody can do
I'm
it?
pretty sure in the 60s a number of cults probably sprung up
Yeah.
with that in mind.
Well, a particular cult potentially had their leader part of MK Ultra, so
Oh, yeah.
it's believed that Jim Jones was part of MK Ultra, and that's why he went batshit crazy because of prolonged exposure to LSD. If you have not listened to that, you can go back to season one where we talk about Jim Jones. That's a fun little thing. Everybody go ahead and drink the Kool-Aid. LSD stands out as the prototypical psychedelic and considered one of the classical psychedelics due to its significant scientific and cultural impact. The substance is synthesized in a solid form, either as a powder or a crystalline material, and is then dissolved in a solvent such as ethanol or distilled water to create a solution. This liquid form facilitates precise dosing and is typically applied to small pieces of blotter paper known as tabs for consumption, either by swallowing or holding under the tongue. In its pure state, LSD appears clear or white, is odorless, and crystalline. It is sensitive to degradation under ultraviolet light.
I remember someone, I don't know if this is true, Jimi Hendrix supposedly would actually, because he always wore a bandana around his head, supposedly he would soak it in LSD and put the headband on, and while he was playing his guitar, he's sweating and everything, his pores would open and he would absorb the LSD, so he basically would be tripping in the middle of a concert.
Yeah.
So if it's sensitive to ultraviolet light, why is it a huge party drug when there's a lot of raves and stuff?
Because
there's a lot of black lights.
Once it's absorbed into your skin, it doesn't matter. And that is in its true form. That it's...
Yeah.
You got to remember that they are mixing it with ethanol or distilled water. Typically ethanol, though, because it's going to give you a more potent effect. Just think of what ethanol will do to you normally. And then add LSD on top of that. So,
no, thank you.
So pharmacologically, LSD is categorized as a non-addictive and has low potential for abuse. However, it can trigger adverse psychological effects including anxiety, paranoia, and delusions. While uncommon, LSD may also cause flashbacks or hallucinogen persisting perception disorder, HPPD, where individuals experience continued visual hallucinations or perceptual distortions such as visual snow and palinopsia.
What is palinopsia?
So, number one, visual snow.
It's
like in the summer seeing it snow outside.
Yeah.
But palinopsia is where you're seeing a recurrence of an image in time. So, basically think of having your hand in front of your face and waving your hand, but you're seeing where your hand was at all times.
That shimmering.
So if you've ever seen in the movies where they do the the really slow stuff. That's palinopsia.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
That's trippy.
So that, like, if you're watching a movie where they have done LSD, palinopsia is like the one thing that they show in the movie to show that they're on LSD.
If you ever watch The Matrix where he's like doing the dodging back
That's
and forth.
palinopsia, yeah. That is showing that you are moving throughout different periods of time. Structurally, LSD is related to substituted tryptamines, a group that includes psilocybin, the psychoactive substance in psychedelic mushrooms. The structural similarity means that LSD shares some mechanisms of action and psychedelic effects with psilocybin and other tryptamines.
Honestly, when I was looking this up, on the one hand, I can see why somebody would think, like, oh, this would be fun to do. But half of the stories I've read about this, people don't usually have good trips. Some people have weird trips, but nobody. I found very few good trips. It's either a weird trip or a bad trip. And the bad ones, everyone's fucked up after using LSD. For the most part, nobody ever just uses it. You trip balls for a couple of hours, and then you're fine. You're taking days to recover from this.
Yeah, I used to know the chemical compound of psilocybin. So psilocybin is in like 200 forms of mushrooms. Let's see, that's right, C12H17N2O4P. But yeah, it's in over 200 species of fungi, and it is nastily excreted by the fungi's renal glands. Yeah.
So now we're going to see one of the MK Ultra experiments that actually used LSD. This was probably one of the early ones that they used for it, but it is... Oh, you're going to giggle on this one, folks, just at when you learn the name of it and what it actually entailed.
So, Operation Midnight Climax was one of the more controversial endeavors undertaken by the CIA as part of the MK Ultra project, involving increasingly elaborate and ethically dubious experiments with LSD. Initiated in 1955 in San Francisco at 225 Chestnut Street. So, Climax was happening at Nut Street. You didn't put that together, did you?
No, I did.
The operation saw the CIA, under the oversight of Walter White, transforming a simple bedroom into an elaborate trap designed to observe the effects of the drug on unwitting participants. George White, who had a notable background with the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, which doesn't exist anymore, was a key figure in transitioning to the CIA's drug experimentation efforts. His renovations for the operations setting included hanging pictures of French can-can dancers, lush red curtains, and the Toulouse-Lautrec posters framed with black silk mats, creating an atmosphere charged with sex and allure.
If you haven't figured out what exactly he created, you're about to find out.
Yeah.
A sex dungeon.
Oh, no.
The operation involved prostitutes who lured unsuspecting men to the bedroom where they were secretly dosed with LSD. White observed the proceedings from behind a two-way mirror, drink in hand, using bugging equipment installed by a hired Berkeley engineering student. These prostitutes were compensated with small sums of money and promises of legal protection from White and their future run-ins with law enforcement. While initially focused on testing LSD's effects, White's and the CIA's interest evolved towards exploiting the sexual encounters for intelligence purposes. They analyzed the dynamics of interactions with prostitutes and the potential for extracting information post-coitally. The project morphed into what was referred to by some as the CIA Carnal Operations, exploring new methods of manipulating human behavior. Now, to this day, the CIA still uses this, not with LSD, but they will typically have a operative who sex sells.
I mean, this
is where people are vulnerable, and you connect with a person after the deed is done, and you're going to spill all your secrets. I mean, pillow talk.
Yep.
And in the spy world, pillow talk is money.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is everything like you described. It could be blackmailing an individual who's married. That like we have photos of you engaging in sexual acts with someone who's not your significant other. If you don't give us these secrets, we're going to publish it and you're going to be outed and your life's going to be ruined. I mean, this is probably the oldest method of intelligence gathering in the world. It's just kind of bizarre how the CIA went about it. This is a clear indication of what happens when you don't have oversight of your projects, because this is literally, I really believe this is just this as we're about to find out what George White. This is just him doing this to get his rocks off.
Well, you know that CIA also has a sex squad, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
They're not spies. The CIA basically has a group of prostitutes that are given to foreign diplomats and stuff like that, that are kings, presidents, potentiates, magistrates, also defectors and CIA agents. It's literally called the Sex Squad. You can actually find it it is a open CIA document. About it's how we started gathering stuff. Especially, we would have Middle East monarchs come over, and they would initiate the sex squad, and they were basically trading sex for secrets. So George White's motivations for his involvement in Operation Midnight Climax were not purely scientific or operational. He openly admitted to taking personal pleasure in the activities, describing his participation as driven by voyeurism and a sense of adventure. White's own reflections on his work reveal a troubling enthusiasm for the power and impunity granted by his role. He famously remarked, "I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest?" This statement underscores the ethical breaches inherent in the operation, highlighting a profound disregard for the well-being and consent of the individuals involved. White's actions and remarks are indicative of the darker aspects of such clandestine operations, where the line between duty and moral transgression was often blurred.
Again, this is what happens when you put somebody who should not be in charge of this kind of operation in charge of it with no oversight. Because I guarantee you, nobody was asking him what the hell they were doing. I wouldn't even be surprised if he just did it on his own and they were just like...
He's just sitting there fapping away.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
So now we're going to talk about Dr. Luis Jolyon Jolly West.
Sub-Project 43.
So, West was born in Brooklyn, New York, or Madison, Wisconsin, to...
Wisconsin, fucker.
Wisconsin.
It's
that Minnesotan accent.
I can kill you.
Wisconsin.
You can kill my character, so I'm not going to do shit to you. It's Wisconsin.
To a Ukrainian Jewish immigrant father and piano teacher mother. That's so typical. It really is. Like the Ukrainian Jewish immigrant that is a piano teacher. He experienced poverty growing up in Madison. Oh shit, most people do. West attended the University of Wisconsin-Madison for a year and completed prerequisite coursework at the University of Iowa under the Army Specialized Training Program during World War II. He earned his MD from the University of Minnesota Medical School in 1949 and completed his residency at Payne Whitney Psychiatric Clinic of Cornell University in 1952. One of the most famous psychiatric facilities in the world.
Cornell is one of the best colleges. I'm shocked,
especially for medical.
Is Cornell considered an Ivy League? I've heard people say it's not, but
I don't think so.
From what I've always understood, it pretty much is an Ivy League.
Yeah. Brown, Columbia, Cornell, Dartmouth, Harvard, University of Pennsylvania, Princeton, and Yale.
Oh.
So yes, Cornell is considered an Ivy League. I had a friend that I went to high school with that ended up going to Cornell for getting their PhD, and they now do, like, I think they do cancer stuff. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it is a very good school, and you have to be very smart to go to Cornell.
Yes.
So this man was not an idiot.
No.
In
University of Wisconsin-Madison, that is like a hard college to get into.
Yeah. In the 1950s, during the aftermath of the Korean War, Dr. West was tasked with understanding why a significant number of American airmen captured by North Korea had confessed to alleged war crimes against the U.S. Amidst rumors of brainwashing or the use of drugs, West led a panel that deduced a less complex yet harsh method was employed to extract these confessions: severe sleep deprivation. West concluded that the prolonged lack of sleep was strategically used to disorient, confuse, and break down the prisoners psychologically until they were prepared to admit to any charges. So Dr. West is the person I get to blame for having to endure the stuff I endured for training. Based on his findings, West's research provided crucial evidence that prevented the airmen from facing court-martial. This work was further detailed in his paper titled United States Air Force Prisoners of the Chinese Communist Methods of Forceful Indoctrination, Observations, and Interviews. The paper outlined the methods observed during his study and served as a significant contribution to understanding the techniques of psychological manipulation in warfare. Subproject 43 was part of the CIA's MKUltra program, which conducted experiments on human subjects to identify and develop drugs and procedures to be used in interrogations and torture in order to weaken individuals and force confessions through mind control. The MKUltra project was officially sanctioned in 1953, was reduced in scope in 1964, further curtailed in 1967, then officially halted in 1973. Subproject 43 specifically involved funding for the construction of an isolation chamber that was used for sensory deprivation research. The idea behind sensory deprivation was to study the effects of reduced environmental stimulation on the human mind, including hallucinations, increased suggestibility, and disorientation. This was pursued with the aim of understanding how these conditions could be applied to manipulate people's psyches during interrogations.
This is one of the more bizarre things he did.
So now, this is personal experience for me. This sleep deprivation. I went through sleep deprivation training, and it is one of the most brutal things I ever went through. Basically, what'll happen is they had a single chamber. Now they basically put you in the equivalent of a jail cell, but it is all confined. It is all enclosed. There is no bars. You can't see each other, can't hear each other. They will put you in there. They will crank the AC to like 50 degrees, so you're freezing. Then they will blast loud music such as heavy metal, stuff like that. Crank it all the way up so you can't even hear yourself talk. And they give you a bed, but no pillows, no blankets. So at 60 degrees, you're freezing. You don't sleep. I didn't sleep for 4 days. And they'll pull you out periodically, sit you in a chair, and interrogate you. They don't do it by torture, but they sit there and talk to you. They're trying to break you. They're promising you, you'll get a blanket. This can all stop if you tell me what I need to know. And basically, for our training purposes, they want to see how long we last. Now, you get guys that are SEALs and Delta Force that these guys will never break. For us, we were just dealing with nuclear weapons. They wanted to make sure we didn't give any nuclear secrets out. And I broke in 5 days. It was brutal.
Unfortunately, I would probably be the one that would break the soonest.
There's some people that break in 30 seconds.
Our AC's on, and it's like at a comfortable 70 degrees, and I'm wearing a sweatshirt, freezing my ass off right now.
I probably have a psychotic break and probably try and kill the guy who's across from me, because at that point, I just know my mental thing. I'm like, it's not that I don't think I could last. I probably could last a little bit, but I was like, you know what? I'm taking you down with me because I'm just tired of dealing with this, and I don't feel like going out like a little bitch.
It's all mental. It basically, you have to tell yourself that this is all a test, that this is blah 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 blah, and it's just repeating that to yourself over and over, and then eventually you just go insane. You're so fucking tired that you just want it to stop. On top of waterboarding and all of that stuff, that I won't even get into waterboarding because it's not fun. You feel like you're drowning. In August 1962, Dr. Jolly West faced one of the most peculiar and controversial incidents in his career, involving the LSD-related death of Tusco, a bull elephant at the Lincoln Park Zoo in Oklahoma City. West and his team administered LSD to Tusco in an attempt to replicate the phenomenon of must, a periodic condition in male elephants characterized by increased aggression. Contrary to their expectations, LSD induced severe seizures in Tusco just minutes after administration. So he killed an elephant.
Those fucking bastards.
Oh, that's the least of what they do.
But
That's the least of what they do to animals.
Yeah.
A lot of the early experiments were all done on animals because it's more ethical than it is on humans. Reacting to the unforeseen adverse effects, West and his team administered a large dose of antipsychotic drug, promazine hydrochloride, totaling 2,800 milligrams over 11 minutes. Unfortunately, this intervention did not alleviate the situation, may have even contributed to Tusco's death, which occurred an hour and 40 minutes after LSD was administered. First of all, this is the worst doctor I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
So we still use promazine hydrochloride as an antipsychotic. Now, it's not going to reverse the effects of LSD. But 2,800 milligrams over 11 minutes, that is a lot. Typically, for an antipsychotic, you are usually getting 10 to 12 milligrams per day. Not 2,800 over 11 minutes. Now, this is an elephant. It's a bigger thing. But still, 2,800 milligrams. So he basically helped the elephant overdose on this promazine. It is ridiculous in the amount. Subsequent analysis and discussions among experts suggested that the dosing error stemmed from scaling the LSD based on Tusco's body weight rather than his brain weight, neglecting other crucial psychological factors such as metabolic rate. Another prevailing theory was that while the LSD itself caused significant distress, it was a subsequent administration of promazine that was ultimately fatal. So with a psychedelic or something that affects the brain, like LSD, your body weight does not matter.
No,
it's affecting your brain. Elephants have the same brain size as we do.
So they should have probably just given him a normal
dose.
And the elephant, I mean, I still think it's fucked up to give an elephant LSD, but it probably wouldn't have killed him.
Exactly. He would have tripped out. But in an effort to explore whether LSD alone could be lethal at doses given, Ronald K. Siegel of UCLA conducted a follow-up experiment with 2 other elephants, administering LSD doses equivalent per kilogram of body weight, but through drinking water instead of injection. These elephants did not die or suffer severe distress, but did exhibit unusual behavior for several hours. This experiment suggested that the method of LSD administration and the use of additional drugs like promazine could have been critical factors in Tusco's tragic outcome. Dr. West had a notable connection with Jack Ruby, the man who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, the accused assassin of President John F. Kennedy. After Ruby's arrest for shooting Oswald, there were numerous speculations and concerns about his mental state and motivations. Dr. West visited Jack Ruby in jail and conducted a psychiatric evaluation. He was one of several psychiatrists who examined Ruby to determine his mental competency. Dr. West's involvement was particularly significant because he concluded that Ruby was suffering from major mental illness. His findings suggested that Ruby was in a psychotic state at the time of Oswald's killing, driven by paranoia and delusion. West's assessment contributed to the debate over whether Ruby's act was a calculated retaliation linked to a broader conspiracy, or the impulsive act of an unstable individual.
Also of note, Dr. West was under the employ of the CIA when he made this evaluation. He was not like just some random doctor they picked. He was working for the CIA when he examined Jack Ruby.
Yeah, we will get into Jack Ruby, Lee Harvey Oswald. We'll do a whole episode on the Kennedy assassination.
I can't wait for that one.
Because that's a good one.
Because I have Jim Garrison's book On the Trail of the Assassins.
Patty Hearst trial. Dr. West's connection to Patty Hearst also highlights his involvement in high-profile cases where his psychiatric expertise was sought. Patty Hearst, an heiress to the Hearst newspaper fortune, which no longer exists anymore, was kidnapped in 1974 by the Symbionese Liberation Army, the SLA, a radical left-wing terrorist group. I don't think this SLA exists anymore.
No,
they were obliterated after all of this.
Oh yeah, they were literally. Don't let the name fool you. This was literally like maybe 4 or 5 people, to include Patty Hearst,
and they
all dead. Actually, I think so. No, I didn't put it in here. So no, after Patty Hearst was arrested or she escaped, I forget. We should actually put that as an episode to do because it's really interesting. They actually cornered the SLA at a Hallam in North Hollywood, and they were all killed by the LAPD in a shootout.
Yeah. So over time, she appeared to join her captor's cause, a phenomenon that became a widely discussed example of Stockholm Syndrome, where hostages develop sympathy for their captors. We know a famous Stockholm Syndrome Disney movie.
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast. She gets Stockholm Syndrome. That's what everybody says. Well, and that supposedly was the original reason for the writing, was to talk about Stockholm Syndrome.
Let's not ruin one of my favorite Disney princesses.
If you watch the Grimm version or read the Grimm version of Beauty and the Beast, it is brutal.
Nope. Hence why I'm never going to read those, because I do not want my favorite Disney characters ruined.
After Hearst was captured in 1975, she was put on trial for involvement in a bank robbery conducted during her time with the SLA. Dr. West was consulted as a psychiatrist to evaluate her mental state and provide insight into her behavior and decisions during the period of her abduction and subsequent activities with the SLA. West's evaluation supported the defense's argument that Hearst had been brainwashed and was acting under duress, not out of her free will. He argued that the severe isolation, fear, and indoctrination she experienced could lead to significant changes in her personality and mental stability, effectively coercing her into becoming an unwilling participant in criminal activities. Despite West's and other experts' testimonies on the psychological impact of her kidnapping and alleged brainwashing, Hearst was convicted and sentenced to prison, although her sentence was later commuted by President Jimmy Carter, and she was pardoned by President Bill Clinton. Dr. West's involvement in the case was part of a larger pattern in his career, where his psychiatric assessments were sought in complex cases involving issues of mind control, coercion, and the effects of extreme psychological stress. So Carter and Clinton actually did something right.
Yeah, for once.
Yeah, probably the only thing they did right.
This one you'll actually enjoy, Kayde.
So let's talk about some Scientology again. Again, we have done a 4-parter on Scientology. That was in episode 1. We may redo that one.
Season 1, you mean? Not episode 1?
Yeah. We may redo that one.
We are not visiting the Scientology temple.
We are.
I'm not going.
We're going to go take their test.
I'll go for the snacks.
Test?
Yeah, there's a test to evaluate you.
Again, okay, so we are definitely redoing Scientology, so Pam can be involved in the Scientology one. That's a 4-parter. It's a great one.
Oh, great.
There's so much to it.
Luckily, we already have it written
we already have it written out. We're just going to redo it for quality standards.
Yeah.
So, and you guys will see, we'll probably start redoing a lot of episode 1 where our quality
Season 1.
Yes. Where our quality was worse. So we'll kind of fix everything. So Dr. Jolly West experienced significant conflict with the Church of Scientology after he publicly labeled the organization as a cult.
Which is...
Wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
This dispute intensified after West's contribution to a textbook in 1980 where he explicitly referred to Scientology in these terms. In response, Scientologists launched efforts to discredit him and campaign for his dismissal. The tension between West and Scientology was highlighted during an American Psychiatric Association panel discussion on cults. Before the event, each speaker received a letter threatening legal action if Scientology was mentioned during their presentations. This threat effectively silenced discussion on Scientology from the panelists except for West. He openly defied the intimidation by reading excerpts from the threat letter to an audience of over 1,000 psychiatrists and then boldly criticized Scientology and its founder, L. Ron Hubbard. West declared Scientology a cult and dismissed Hubbard as a quack and a fake, demonstrating his refusal to be silenced by legal threats or pressure from the organization. This episode exemplified West's firm stance on maintaining professional integrity and freedom of speech within the psychiatric community despite facing significant external pressure. And I'll say it, they can send me all the letters they want. They show up to my door, I got a little friend that'll say hi to him.
I don't like Dr. West. I think he's an asshole.
But this is one of his good things.
This is probably one of the few things where I can be like, good on you, sir, because...
L. Ron Hubbard was a piece of shit that deserved to die.
He's not even a good writer.
His books are highly collectible now.
Oh, now, yeah.
And he was a horrible writer.
Yeah.
Like, he thought he was a great sci-fi writer, and he's a...
Is that why a lot of his books are at half-price books now?
Pretty much.
The ones you see at half-price books are the prerequisites to Scientology.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we'll redo Scientology, because there are a few things I actually want to add to it, so...
So now, also, this one we're going to be talking about here is another method that was experimented on during all these things, MK Ultra. Kind of understand this was a huge thing that they did, so a lot of things were being experimented on, including this one, psychic driving.
In the mid-20th century, psychic driving emerged as a controversial psychiatric technique wherein patients were subjected to repetitive audio messages on loop tapes potentially hundreds of thousands of times to influence their behavior. This procedure was developed by Dr. Donald Ewan Cameron and was notably integrated into the CIA's Project MKUltra in Canada. That's fine, it's in Canada. Which sought to explore... That's actually probably what's wrong with Canada.
Yeah.
That's
all
probably
of them
what's
have
wrong
been
with...
psychically driven, which sought to explore mind control techniques.
Babe, isn't that where you're from?
No, actually it is not.
The process often involved the administration of muscle-relaxing drugs like Curair to restrain the patients, making them more receptive to the incessant messages. Psychic driving was viewed as a method to potentially erase and reshape individual personalities. In a related approach called depatterning, Cameron combined massive doses of electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, with high doses of psychedelic drugs like LSD. This was intended to break down the existing personality, creating a blank slate for psychic driving to construct a new one. However, the aggressive application of ECT often continued even when patients displayed convulsive fits, a clear contradiction in standard ECT protocols. So if you've ever heard of them doing electroshock therapy, that's ECT. So not only are they dosing them with LSD, but they are taking high voltage, putting it to their fucking forehead, and jolting them to try and rewrite their brain. It doesn't work that way.
No.
I really can imagine that somebody told a CIA agent to do that, and some sick bastard probably just got a car battery, some prongs, and got some drugs and injected them, and they just go shocking them. That's just what I think of this. It's like this is some sick fuck thought of this.
By the late 1970s, such extreme methods faced widespread criticism and were largely discontinued, particularly after the CIA's practices were exposed during the 1977 Senate hearings on MKUltra. The unethical nature of these experiments and their impact on human rights have been dramatized in the media, notably in the 1998 docudrama The Sleep Room, directed by Ann Wheeler. Now, similar psychological manipulation techniques have reportedly been used beyond the confines of experimental psychiatry. For instance, during the kidnapping and death of CIA operative William Francis Buckley, Techniques resembling those developed under MKUltra were allegedly utilized by Aziz Al-Abab, also known as Ibrahim al-Nadir. Fucking piece of shit. A medical doctor from Beirut. Al-Abab is accused of employing his medical knowledge to enhance the effectiveness of torture. His methods reportedly concluded the strategic use of drugs, sensory deprivation, and isolation, aligning closely with what some describe as medical torture. These practices highlight a dark intersection between medical training and human rights abuses, reflecting broader ethical issues with certain intelligence and medical practices.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, so we can actually do an entire episode on Ibrahim al-Nadir.
Yeah.
He has done a lot. He did a lot of stuff. He's been linked to numerous terrorist organizations.
Hezbollah, more specifically.
Correct. Big with Hezbollah. But is he still alive?
Oh, I'm sure I would be surprised if he was. I'm sure the Israelis have tried to take him out a few times. I find this, don't get me wrong, William Francis Buckley was the CIA station chief in Beirut. No man deserved this, although there is something kind of a horrible, sick irony that a CIA agent was tortured under methods that were developed by the CIA.
Yeah, so I don't think he's alive still. We won't be able to do an episode on him because there is not much information on Aziz Al-Abab. So his work was kept very quiet.
I don't blame them.
So, as we continue to peel back the layers of these secret initiatives, we invite you to join us in questioning the ethical boundaries and the hidden costs of such projects. How do governments balance national security with individual rights? What are the long-term impacts on society and the individuals involved? These questions are not confined to the past. They echo into modern debates on privacy, human rights, and state power. We invite you to stay tuned as we explore more hidden chapters from the annals of intelligence history, revealing the global reach and implications of these secret operations. From North America to Europe, Asia, and beyond, the quest for control and information continues to shape our world in ways we are only beginning to understand. We want to thank everybody for listening to episode 2 of MKUltra, and we want to remind everybody to turn in your glasses, push in your seat, and as always, tip the bard. Good day, everybody.
Good
day.